Hi, it's Megan. I am so far behind on videos that I have promised people, so I apologize. I will get to them. I just got super overwhelmingly busy, and so now I'm gonna do the first one. This is so tardy, it's almost embarrassing, but this is the Viseart, how do you pronounce it? The French company. Very basic neutral mattes. So in this, you're gonna have a mix of obviously cooler, warmer, and then somewhat neutral shades. And I'm a huge fan, if you've seen some of the other Viseart videos I have done, huge fan of these eyeshadows. And this is going to be both a review video and a tutorial, which is why I have no eye makeup on, and I've got kind of neutral blush and a neutral lip, just so we can play around, because it's also gonna be one of the longer videos I do. I'm going to tell you about each of the shadows, and then I'm going to do each of the eyes in different shades, and there's a reason for that, and I will get to that. So the palettes look like this. They're about $75, $80 depending on where you get them. They sell out constantly, and this is the number one, right? Let me double check that. Yeah, this is the number one palette, so they have a name and then they also have a number, and I don't know if it's the first one, but it is number one. And this is kind of the basic palette. So they look like this, just basic packaging. I love this brand's eyeshadow. It's a French company, and they say that these are hand milled, and they just apply better. I mean, there's no other way of saying it. I actually prefer the mattes from this brand to the ones that are shimmery, like the Paris Nudes. I really love that palette. It's a beautiful palette. Still, I prefer the mattes. But we're talking about, you know, I don't know, a Ferrari versus a Porsche. It's just a personal preference, right? Which is a nicer car. They're both really nice. But what is great about these is that they're super creamy, super finely milled, and they apply where you put them. And I never would have said that about an eyeshadow, because most eyeshadows apply where you put them. But I've had to relearn a little bit my technique for getting eyeshadows on with the Viseart, because they just apply so well that they don't need as much buildup, if that makes sense, or as much, I guess they need, in a sense, more care, because where you put it, you will have eyeshadow. And they blend beautifully, so that's not a problem, but they just apply, in my opinion, better. And they wear really beautifully. I don't actually need to use an eyeshadow primer with this brand's eyeshadows, which is kind of impressive, given that I'd kind of gotten used to the idea that from now on I need to use an eyeshadow primer with my eyeshadows, but that's not the case with these. So, and they blend, like I said, beautifully. So this is it, and I'm going to go through the colors really quickly. We're just going to really quickly go through these. A lot of these are super neutral, and I actually like this palette better than some of the others. There are a few where I feel like they should be incorporated with a palette like this, because they don't do everything, right? It's not just a do-all, be-all, base shade, crease shade, you know, all of that. This is one of those palettes that they blend beautifully together, and you can get a complete look from it. So that's a nice thing. What's also really interesting is the undertones sometimes look a little different than you would expect. So the first one is kind of a warm peach nude. These are not going to show up super well sometimes. You can see it right there. You can see warm, I called it warm brown peach, almost like a nudish color. The next one is like a light apricot. The reason why a lot of these aren't going to show up so well is because they're super close. Yeah, it's not going to show up at all, is it? It's like my skin tone. This one is pretty much like my skin tone, so we're just going to show it like that. The third is another one that's just not going to show up. The last one's a light apricot. This is like a bone peach. Again, it's just not going to show up a little bit. Nah. So for the first top line, we're just going to have to show them on my fingers. The last one is just a creamy vanilla ivory. And this is a really great base shade. So let's show you those again. I just dug my finger into one of them. Oh well, you know, it's only an $80 palette, right? It doesn't matter. The next one is a warm red brown. More brown than red, but this is definitely a more warm undertone. So the first row was pretty much a warmer row. This one, again, is a warmer color, but we're gonna get to some cooler ones. I would say overall, the palette leans warmer rather than cooler. although there are some more neutral shades. This is a really pretty rich red-ish brown. I call it terracotta, right? It's got that orange thing going on. Then this one is another orange brown, but okay, let's show you. So we started out here with kind of the red, went super orange, and then we went just a brown with a little touch of orange under it. The last one is a cooler shade, and this one is a kind of a taupe. This one's going to swatch as well. They do swatch really beautifully. If you can see, it's kind of like a dark taupey, light brown-ish color. And that's a cooler brown shade. And then the last row, the one I just dabbed at, is going to be harder to swatch. This one, I'm not fully agreeing with the matte on this one. I see shimmer on this one outside. It's like that green, blue, black, gray undertone kind of, I don't know, it seems like so many brands have that kind of a shade. So if you're going to look at it here inside, it's going to look kind of charcoal black. But outside, I saw a touch of shimmer in this, and I didn't see them in any of the others, so it's not like it just had a finger or whatever, it just mixed in something else. This is the only palette I was playing with at the time, so I see a little bit of shimmer in that one. Kind of that blue-green undertone. This is a really interesting color. This is a medium gray, but it has, in my mind, a little bit of a pink undertone. You can see right there. And then the last two look very different in the pan. You see these two right here, but when I swatch them, they look very different. So I'm going to put them on two different fingers. So there's the first one, and there's the second one. Take them further up my arm. The first one has purple undertones. This is not working so well, is it? And the second one has what I saw was pink undertones. You can see how differently they look on. The second one is definitely darker. It's a pink or brown kind of a color. This one is like a violet taupey brown. So overall, what I like about these, and then I'm going to do a quick look on each eye to show you, starting with like a basic look and then adding a little bit more drama to it. So what I like about these, I find the quality is amazingly consistent across this whole palette. There's not a bad shade in the bunch. Some of them are super light, so if you don't like light shades or shadows, you might not think those are so great, but I personally like the lighter shades because I need a base shade myself, just a personal bias. I also love how beautifully they apply and wear and blend, which is something that not all eyeshadows do really well. I'm really impressed that as a matte, you actually get the color that you expect to get on your eye. They're not crumbly, they're not, you know, there's so many mattes that just apply muddy, especially with this types of shades. They just don't, they're patchy, they're powdery, they're flaky, they're just not nice. These are really beautiful on consistently, and so I like that. I'm not so thrilled with the price point, obviously. And then I also like the fact that a lot of these are just slightly unusual shades. We have so many neutral, nude type palettes now that kind of the same old colors get boring. And here there's some really pretty reds and grays thrown in, and you got some cooler colors, some warmer colors. This was kind of more neutral, leaning warm. This row, except for the last one, was warmer. This one leaned a little bit cooler. So you get a good mix of all that. So I really obviously like this palette a lot. So I'm just gonna do a quick brown look on one side, and then I'm gonna take the grays on the other. And I'm going to, I think what I'll do is I'll do the way that I apply it myself, and then I'm gonna do one that's really popular on other people, which I don't think works as well on my eye shape, but works really beautifully on people with almond shaped eyes, people that don't have as much lid space, people that have less round eyes. So we'll try two different things, and you can use the same look with either set of color, but one is just going to be a neutral, a shadow color, then I'm going to start lining it. I'm going to start putting some shading into the crease. The other one is just going to gradiate a little bit darker. So what we're going to start with, I've got a whole bunch of brushes here, and whenever I do a video like this, I pull my favorite brushes. I have tons and tons of brushes, but I just, when I'm doing a video, I kind of like the ones I like. my favorite ones. So first I'm going to take some of these top shades. I'm going to take the ivory one and I'm going to put that right here. And you can see how beautifully it applies. And then I'm going to take this cooler taupe and put that on the lid. Now I'm using a bigger brush because I want just a wash of color. This is kind of going to start out, but you can see I'm actually going to blend out a little bit of this because it's a little bit too much color for what I want. I'm looking for a more natural look. Now you can take a blender brush. I actually like the control that I get with using my finger. And it's kind of just a personal preference as to what you like. Now I love this brush. This is probably my favorite brush whatsoever. It's like a little pointy, sometimes it's called a smoky eye brush. I love it because I really want to apply precisely exactly where I want it. And so I'm actually going to take this lighter color again and I'm going to apply it very softly. If I do a line that goes across the whole lower eye and I'm not really careful with gradiating kind of lighter shades in the inner eye area, I start looking really hard. It's not something that works very well on me. So I'll do a lighter shadow like this, and then you'll see I'm going to blend it out a little bit with a lighter color. And then also where I have a hard time is in this corner here. I feel like I need to be really precise. This is where kind of, I don't know, people's obsession with perfection can get a little bit obscene, but for me, getting that corner is a little bit of an obsession. So I either use the brush I just showed you, or I use a really short eyeshadow brush like this. I'm going to pull this down a little bit like this, because as I'm looking down. And then I like these smaller, shorter bristle brushes just to kind of go, see, into that eye socket a little bit, so that I'm actually basically lining that whole area up above the crease a little bit with that lighter shadow. Now this is already applied such that, given it's a lighter shade, I don't really need to take more of my lighter color and put it back in here and kind of just blend the edges, because these shades are pretty light. But that's another thing you can do. When you put it on, you can then take a clean brush and start blending this a little bit in, or put a little bit more of the lighter shade up in here and then blend it in, so that you don't see kind of a starkness in the differences of the color. But this is such a light shadow that it's not gonna, and I blended it out. I haven't applied it that heavily. I could get more pigmentation if I wanted, but instead I've just got it softly dusted up here, so it's kind of gradiating a little bit anyway. Now I'm gonna take this sort of a brush. It's a really thin little, almost a liner brush with kind of a round edge. I prefer this sort of a brush to the harder edge flat liner, although I also use, I have a super little liner here somewhere, a little one, which is, this one has a soft bristle at the end, and this I'll use to soften. So I'm gonna put some of one of these redder shades in just for fun. This will be a warm look, and then we'll do a cool look with the other one. And I'm gonna dot this, and you could use any of the darker shades. I just chose this one for fun, but if you wanted to make it look a little bit more neutral, see, now this isn't going to match my lip color so well, I would do a peachier kind of a lip with this particular eyeshadow. But I'm now going to put it all in the crease, and so you don't have to use the red one. You could use any of the browns. I'm just going to warm up this cooler taupe a little bit. Now you can see it's a little weird looking, that line there. And this is what I mean about being super careful. And I'm going to show you, see how darkly that applies? Like, look at that. You can use a finger or a brush to blend it out. I actually don't always apply this darker shade all the way into my eyes, and that's just because I find that I get more of a wide eye look if I only apply it from like the half to 2/3 of the way in. but for now we're just going to apply it all the way. I think that's how most people apply it the whole way. And then I'm just going to blend with a finger, but again you can use a brush. And then I'm going to take this and I'm going to take it about a third of the way in. And then what you want to do here is you want, for me, I like to have a thinner line of the lighter color here and then a thicker line. It kind of gets wider as you get out to the outer part of the eye. And then I have to be really careful again in this inner corner so that I'm basically taking the end of this all the way out to here. So it's framing my eye. Now what's really fun you can do with this is you can take one of the darker, warmer browns, and I'm going to take that first one. So what I've used so far, I've used this, now we're going to use this. And then I'm just going to get the outer corner here. And now we're going to add some depth to the eye. The orange color kind of opens up and brightens the eye and adds a little bit of definition and depth into the eye socket. But now we're going to add that darker color. And so you could do the lighter, the orange and the brown, dark brown on the outer corner. We're going to do something similar. But I'm just going to dust it in very softly because I still want this to be a more natural brown look. If you wanted to turn this into like a brown smoky eye, then you would just start putting more of the darker colors into the crease and into the outer corner. But that's not what we're going for here. We're going for a natural look. And so you can see the more of the darker brown I add, the more it kind of changes the eye. And you can stop anywhere along this route. You don't need to add all of it. I'm just adding, I do this a lot in kind of the videos that are tutorials. I'll say, okay, you can do this eye or you can keep going to add to the drama of it. And you can keep building up those browns, but I'm not going to make it darker and more dramatic. And again, you can see I have a watery eye issue in the outer corner. So right here I'm having a hard time getting that darker brown just to apply evenly. And it is just because, first of all, the eye shaped naturally, and then also I do tend to bleed a little bit in the outer corner of my eye. Not like blood bleeding, but like water. Now I'm just going to keep this like this. Again, a natural, kind of somewhat, and then blend a little bit with my finger. I'm going to take this lighter shade and I'm going to put a little bit of that in the inner corner. This is the one that we have up here, that bone shade. And this is going to open up my eyes a lot, in my opinion. So instead of using this shade right here, I could have used any of these lighter shades. And then instead of using this shade and the darker brown to, I got something in my eye, to add depth, I could have used any of these darker colors. And you can actually mix the browns and the grays as well. They're really, really beautiful together. We might actually play around a little bit with that on the other eye. So this is just a very natural, neutral look. Now I'm going to line it with the thing that I also really like about this palette and these eyeshadows is that to get a really good liner, I mean, I don't do like those really harsh lines. I like a softer line. I don't need to wet the eyeshadow. So I'm actually just going to brush this into the very, it's called what, tight lining? I'm going to take this with a small little brush and I'm going to brush this right into the base of the lashes so that I'm going to get a slight line, but it's not going to look like a hard line. If I had wanted a harder line, I would have used a thinner brush. I actually could have used a brush like this, or when I'm talking about the eyeliner brushes that are super fine, I could have used one like that, but I'm just not doing it that. I'm just gonna do a softer line because this is supposed to be the more natural looking eye. And here I'm using the darker brown, and I'm just dusting it, dusting it, dusting it. And then when I do the liner, I just like to make sure with the same brush, I just get that outer corner. I actually don't stick my brushes in my eye as much when I'm not doing it on camera, but I need to use a smaller mirror so I can still. So there we go. You can see just a soft line, because I don't want that harsh look. Now what we're going to play around with in a minute to get more of a harsh look. So this is a Gucci brown mascara, and on this eye I'm just going to use a brown mascara. You can use black. But I find that brown is a much softer look. Okay, so there we have the mascara, there we have one eye. And you can see it's a little bit sultry, but it's still not super dramatic. Now, one thing I've actually been playing around with a lot lately, and I really love, is taking my little Lancome Le Col and the Rich Coffee. This only comes in 2 colors. But it's one of my favorite eye pencils because it's got that kohl softness, but because it's an eye pencil and a quality brand, it doesn't bleed too much, which some kohls can do, while it also wears really well. So I've actually started using that Gucci brown mascara a lot while putting this kohl on the upper waterline like this. So this is going to give it a slightly more dramatic look. And then with this kohl, it's going to bleed just a tiny bit onto the lower line. But you can lash line, but you can see that just gives it a more dramatic look, not quite as natural. Okay, let's play with the other one, and let's not make this video like 2 hours long. Got this like stuff on my wrist. So for this one, I'm going to start with the same base. We're going to go for a much cooler look this time though. So I'm going to take the same lighter bone and just put it up here. See how pigmented that applies? Like, that's just amazing for such a light bone like this. Most of them, and by the way, for this other eye, I'm going to make one little change here. I'm actually going to warm it up and mix in some of this lighter peach right here. And you could do them alone, or you could just mix them like I just did. Anytime, it's one of my favorite tricks sometimes with a quality palette like this, is you can start mixing these colors and you can get more gradations in the color scheme that you're going to do. In fact, let's do that. Why not? Okay, so now I'm actually going to take this kind of a brush, and I'm going to start doing something a little different than what I was originally going to do. I'm going to take these 3 colors right here. So this one, if you remember, was kind of a taupe with a purple undertone. This was kind of a charcoaly gray, and then this was a darker gray, which also had kind of some undertones to it. And I'm going to put a little bit of this in the inner part of the eye. Now these are going to be kind of interesting gradations of shades. I like the purple in this as a cooler undertone. But when we start adding a little bit of the gray to it, I actually really, and then I'm going to take this brush back and I'm going to take some of that and put it just in the inner part. Not going all the way in here. I'm going to put the lighter one in there in a minute. And then I'm going to take the next color and put a little bit of that. And then I'm going to take the darkest and put that on the outer part. Oh, and I just blended it into a mess. I love when I do that online. You almost have to dart this darker one on, and then we're going to blend it a little bit. This is actually a shading brush, but I use it to apply. Someone taught me, a makeup artist taught me to use this to apply, because it's not going to apply as harshly, which if you saw the smaller brush with the darker color, it applied a little bit harshly, because it is just so beautiful in how it applies. Now I'm going to put some of this straight gray right in here. Now the color that I put in here, I actually love using just by itself. on the lid, and so you could even start just applying that, but I want to add more of the gray in this eye. Yeah, so you have to be really careful with this darker one. It's hard to do this on camera. Okay, if you want like a super dark, smoky look, then you don't have to be super careful, but that's not what I'm aiming for. I'm aiming for a little bit more workability, like wearability for daytime. Because most of us don't walk around in smoky eyes all the time. And then I'm going to take this darker one and I'm going to apply it again into the crease. And then blend it. Now with the blacker one, there's a lot of blending unless you want just a super dark look, as I said. And then I'm going to take the lighter shade and brush that into that area up above so that we don't have too harsh a line. And you know, I've done videos where I do like a smoky eye, or I think I might been meaning to, but for most of the tutorials I do, I'm assuming that you're going to want to wear this in a little bit more of like an everyday look. So if I'm wrong about that, then please let me know. Now I'm going to take some of that medium gray and put that in the middle. Again, you can see a nice soft warm purple than the gray, only because I mean it's a cooler color, but it still is a warmer color than the next color. And I've blended it such that you don't see purple, taupe, gray, and then black. It's blended in so that it seamlessly, I hope, goes from one shade to the next. And these shadows are so great about doing that. Now I am not going to, oh, that looks just so like, it looks so well blended given that I'm doing this on camera. And that is absolutely not me, that is totally the shadows. And then I'm going to take this lighter color and put that in here, take some more of this taupe, and start mixing this in, and then take some of the lighter gray and soften that line. And then blend a little bit with the brush. I'm actually gonna fix this, shut the camera off, fix it, and then come back and tell you what I did, because it's hard for me to blend this perfectly on camera. Now I'm gonna take just the black. Once you mix the black in, I'm gonna take my Lancome in black, and I'm not actually gonna start out by lining this. I'm gonna start out by doing the black on the upper waterline, because I actually cannot wear like a charcoal liner without doing the black on the upper waterline too, or it looks odd, because then you see this like white line between the dark gray and my eye. It looks very, very awkward on me. So when I take the black, I always take it all the way into this corner, and see, even like this, I'm still not liking that look. I have to be really, really careful with anything that's like a dark gray or a black liner. So I'm taking just this tiny little thin brush, and if you see how beautifully it applies, it's like wherever I put it, even though it's not wet, it applies almost like a wet brush. And I will have to soften this, by the way. This is going to be too hard on me. And then I like to get right in that inner corner. Again, getting that seamless look. I can see the light changing as I'm doing this. So I'm going to take this and just blend it a little bit more, because I don't like those black lines. And I'm blending in a little bit as well, just to give kind of a softer look. I will have to fix this. I've already said that 5 times. And then we're going to take the black mascara, and then I'm going to turn off the camera and tell you what I had to do to fix it once I fixed it. And what it's really going to come down to is just correcting for the darkness of that black gray and making sure that everything is blended perfectly. So now I'm just doing a little bit of mascara. Right like that. And so you can see a more natural look here, and then let's go off camera here, and then a more dramatic look, let's do it like that, on this side. And you could have stopped anywhere. With this, the best kind of basic way to look at it is you take one of these top 3 colors, put it right in this little area, take one of the other lighter colors, put it onto the lid and up into the crease a little bit, and then line partially here. And then if you want, you can use the others as an eyeliner and then also in the crease to add depth. So I'm going to stop this camera for 1 second. I'm going to go fix this eye because, like I said, it's just with black I have to be super careful, these dark charcoaly grays, or I look a little silly. I'm going to fix it and tell you what I did. Thank you. Just 1 second. Hi, it's back, and I will tell you what I did. I basically used a small little liner brush like this one to even out the line here and here with the black gray, the dark one, and then I took an Hourglass, which was a recommendation brush, crease brush, and I just softly blended in a little bit more of the black gray and then also soften the line here. This brush actually works great in the crease, but it also works as a great blending brush because of the type of bristles. It's kind of a softer application into the crease, and then also a way of kind of blending out too much. And then I changed to a nude lipstick because I feel like that works better with the eye look that I had. What I had before was perfect for just dusting on a little bit of a natural look, but here as we built it up, all of a sudden I need less on the lips. I could have done a gloss too, but I just decided to go for a nude lipstick. So anyway, here we have one look, which is kind of a warm brown, and here we have a cool kind of gray taupe. And that's it. That's what I'm going to do with these right now. I hope that helps. And like I said, the best way to look at it is to have base shades, lid shades, crease shades, and then liners if you need them. And really just blending and mixing in the colors is how you're going to get the best look. What I also really like to do is take these kind of peachier shades and use those on my eyelids. Or kind of these right here, this quad right here, this 4, separately, just for a super great natural, I don't want to say nude, that's such an overdone word in makeup, but kind of an everyday, perfect, quick, flawless look. But just remember, if you put it on the lid, you should put a little bit lining the lower eyelids as eyelashes as well. Anyway, I'm finally starting to catch up, and I will be doing more videos, I promise. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe on YouTube. It does actually help me if you subscribe. Thanks.